Right, while I'm uploading that video, let me just give you, without really adding any sources, just give you my analysis of the world today and where we're going based on my opinion. And let me just give you a prediction of what I believe will happen in 2014. And first off, let me start off with gold and silver. I believe that we'll see gold north of 2000, and we'll see silver at 30, 34 dollars an ounce, and these are ounces. I think what will happen is, and it's going to happen, I believe, very early on, but it could also happen later in the year where we will have another sort of 2008, another crisis will pop up, and the Fed with Janet Yellen claim that they haven't seen it coming, and they'll pump all this liquidity back into the market, in which case we'll pump gold and silver, and gold and silver will re-enter into a bull market phase, which I believe they're still in a bull market phase. They're really just experiencing a correctional phase within this bull market phase. So you can't think short term with gold and silver, you have to think long term. I mean, guys like Jim Sinclair, Peter Schiff, R. Rogers, many of them have said it. If you invest in gold and silver, make sure it's long term and not short term. Make sure you're not speculating in it. So I believe it'll be north of 2000 for an ounce for gold. I believe it's going to be 30, 34 an ounce of silver, although I could be wrong, but just a prediction. Now, as far as war, I think to start off in the year, there's going to be a lot of saber rattling. I think countries are going to come out and they're going to use harsh language, and they're going to play this sort of cat and mouse game to make it appear as though they're going to go to war or there's some sort of conflict. And in many cases, there really is a conflict. I think they're going to use war as sort of a diversion from the economic crisis to collapse. We saw that really in 2008 when the United States, not a lot of people I don't think remember this or have sort of short-term memory, but we had a crisis develop over in Georgia, in old Soviet Union territory. And apparently what really happened there was the people, or terrorists in Georgia, had attacked Russia. And Russia had rolled in with tanks and nukes and stuff. Excuse me. And so there was sort of a brief conflict between Georgia and Russia. And this was, of course, during the Olympic Games. While you had Vladimir Putin and George W. Bush, president back then, attending the games together. So there was that conflict brewing. Of course it leveled out a little bit and nothing really came of it. But although it was very close to becoming a nuclear conflict, and that was, of course, back in August. And later on, a month later, 2 months later, is when the economic crisis really started to take root and really started to dominate the headlines. So I believe that whole Georgia-Russia conflict back in 2008 was meant to be a diversionary tactic from what they had saw coming in September and October later that year. I believe we're going to see the same thing. And I believe we've already seen the same thing, or at least parts of it, take shape in areas over in Syria and also in Japan and China, where they're using Japan and China, they're using Syria as a way to make people pay attention to what's going on internationally while they're financially raping us nationally. So it's really just a bait and switch strategy so that people don't understand why they can't afford the food that they used to be able to afford at the grocery store, or why is it that they can't take out $300 in their bank account. You know what I mean? It's just that's just exactly what is going on, or what I believe is going on based on my understanding and research of a lot of these things. And I use a lot of sources when I read through these things. So I'm not just espousing my opinion, I'm really espousing other people's opinions and using that to form my own opinion, which is, I believe, is what a lot of people should be doing. Now, let me also say this too. There's also going to be a lot of media distractions, propaganda distractions, and let me touch base on the Phil Robertson piece that had just occurred and he had gotten reinstated. Well, I believe the whole Phil Robertson fiasco was nothing more than a scripted joke. It was fake from the very beginning, and Phil Robertson never really was suspended from A&E. And as a matter of fact, A&E had continued on with the Mega Marathon during Christmas Day, which was, like I said, which was a joke. Because if they really were that upset with Phil Robertson, they never would have aired that Christmas Day. Never. If they really were sincere in suspending him or suspending the cast of Duck Dynasty. Because that was, of course, before the cast of Duck Dynasty came out and said, well, we're going to support Phil Robertson and we're not going to continue to do this. Now, that being the case, why would A&E continue on with this marathon? Why didn't they just reschedule another show during that day? So, like I said, I believe the whole thing was scripted. I believe it was meant for the libertarian movement to be distracted with this fake free speech issue, which it really isn't a free speech issue, in the sense that, if it's a government stepping on someone's free speech, well, then that is a free speech issue. But if a company can choose to represent themselves however they want, and if you as an individual, as an individual who doesn't align themselves with their ideals, then they have a right to get rid of you. Well, that's true. I've always said, well, that being the case, just don't support them financially. You don't support them financially, and they're going to lose money from you. It's that simple. So it's not a free speech in the same way as if the government were to, arrest you for your opinions on Barack Obama or anything like that. It's not the same thing. Furthermore, Duck Dynasty is just nothing more than a stereotypical, redneck type of thing. For example, I was watching some of the episodes on Christmas Day, just hanging out with my family, and I noticed that every time that a cast member was at a confessional, which is, of course, standard practice in reality television, they kept saying, well, we did such and such, and that's the redneck thing to do, so we did it. So it's just this pushing of stereotypes. It's this propaganda, like, you're this type of person, so you have to act like us. It's this more of this divide and conquer, and that's what this show and many other shows like it are designed to do, is divide and conquer the population. Going back to the whole propaganda, I believe we're going to see a lot more of that. The more we see the economy crash, the more we get into some major wars, which I believe will happen as a distraction mechanism. They're going to use the media as a way to really divide and conquer people, and essentially try to start a civil war, because if they decide to start a civil war, well, then that takes everybody's opinions away from the economy and also the major wars that are happening internationally. Excuse me. So, well, this video is getting kind of long, so I'm going to go ahead and end it. And thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and take care. And of course, Happy New Year if I don't see you before the end of the new year. So, bye.